Good evening. I would like to call tonight's meeting of the Tacoma Park City Council to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Searcy,
Here.
Councilmember Fulcher,
Present.
Councilmember Dvala,
Present.
Councilmember Gibson.
Here.
Councilmember Siemens,
Present.
Councilmember Hodzak,
Present.
Councilmember Small,
Chilling everyone, please be new on me.
Oh, turned off my mic. Good evening, everyone. The council apologized. We were a few minutes behind. We had an administrative session right before this meeting to discuss the city manager's evaluation. In terms of items on the agenda this evening, there have been no changes. And just for folks' awareness, the list of items this evening, we will only have a voting session. The first item is the second reading ordinance approving the FY25 budget amendment number 2, general fund and stormwater. Second reading ordinance approving FY25 budget amendment number 2, ARPA reallocations. Second reading ordinance amending Title 6 of the Tacoma Park Code to add provisions to create a housing preservation tax credit. Second reading ordinance amending Title 6 of the Tacoma Park Code to add provisions to create a new rental housing tax credit. Resolution directing staff to develop and budget for a multifamily rehabilitation tax credit. Single reading ordinance approving the multifamily building improvement grants award, and a single reading ordinance approving the procurement of 12 police patrol vehicles. The resolution on the removal of unlawful restrictive covenants. Whew, that was a lot. So in terms of this week, on Thursday, October the 31st is Halloween. I want to encourage people to be safe and make sure that your little ones are managed properly as folks are navigating dark streets on Thursday. On Tuesday, November the 5th is City Election Day. On Wednesday, November the 6th through Friday, November the 8th is the Maryland Municipal League Fall Conference. On Wednesday, November the 6th, the City Council will not meet. On Monday, November the 11th is Veterans Day. City offices and facilities are closed Sunday and Monday for the Veterans Day holiday. On Tuesday, November the 12th is the Community Budget Forum at 7 p.m. here in the auditorium. On Wednesday, November the 13th, the City Council regular meeting is at 7:30 p.m. and we will have a presentation certifying results of the city election. And then on November the 13th through the 16th is the National League of Cities City Summit. And Monday, November the 18th is the swearing in of the new City Council at 7:30 in the auditorium. And that will get us very close to the Thanksgiving holiday. With that, I'm going to move things into our public comment period. Do we have any public comments on voting items this evening? If you all gonna make me read it over, I will. All right, I'll go through.
No.
You got it? All right, I'll do it. So I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do my part. Second reading ordinance approving FY25 budget amendment number 2, general fund and stormwater. Second reading ordinance approving FY25 budget amendment number 2, ARPA reallocations. Second reading ordinance amending Title 6 of the Tacoma Park Code and add provisions to create a housing preservation tax credit. Second reading ordinance amending Title 6 of Tacoma Park Code and add provisions to create a new rental housing tax credit. Resolution directing staff to develop and budget for multifamily rehabilitation tax credit. Single reading ordinance approving multifamily building improvement grants. Single reading ordinance approving the procurement of 12 police patrol vehicles. The resolution of the removal of unlawful restricted covenants. Come on down.
This is on. Okay,
It is.
great. Good evening, Mayor Searcy and City Council members. My name is Sasha Olinik. I am the president of the board of the Leland Tenant Association, and tonight I am joined by our secretary, Judy Tribal, and our treasurer, Alan Clark, and our association member, Jesse Kroll. As many of you may remember, just 2 years and 1 week ago, with much assistance from the city's Department of Housing and Community Development and the strong support of this council, our association was able to make use of the tenant opportunity to purchase law and acquire the 15-unit building, the Leland, where we all live just up the hill at 112 Lee Avenue. Though the road to homeownership has been a long one, we are incredibly grateful for all of the aid we have received up to this point. Tonight, we are here. Tonight, we are here with the hope that you will continue your support of our efforts to improve the energy efficiency of our home and also continue your partnership with us in the goal of creating a model of environmentally sustainable, moderate income multifamily housing in the heart of Tacoma Park. We ask you to please vote in favor of Tacoma Park Housing Manager Devin McNally's recommendation that we be awarded a multifamily building improvement grant. This funding will cover the cost of a much-needed replacement of our outdated electrical panel, which will in turn allow us to transition away from a dependence on fossil fuels. We thank you for your time and consideration and appreciate all that you have done and continue to do to make the Tacoma Park community greener and more accessible for all. Finally, we would like to take a moment to recognize the many contributions of our long-serving Ward 4 Representative Terry Siemens at this, his final council meeting. Thank you very much. Please vote yes.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other comments this evening on voting items?
Good evening. I'm Jim Douglas at 7112 Maple Avenue, here tonight on behalf of Historic Tacoma to reiterate our strong support for what appears to be the last thing that this council will do as a matter of business, which is to adopt a resolution moving forward with seeking a way for the city to seek removal of unlawful racial covenants. And we just wanted to thank you for the work so far. Thanks to the council members that have worked on this. Thanks to the staff that have worked on this. We stand ready, of course, to continue to work with both council and staff on the next steps to work with the delegation and work with the public to remove these covenants. That said, let me turn to me personally, and recognizing that this is your last business meeting, I want to thank each and every one of you again for being council members. A long time ago, I sat up there, and I can tell you that no one knows what it's like unless you're there. We all may think we know what it's like sitting in the audience, but you've been there. You've done a tremendous job, each and every one of you. Terry, I don't know what you're going to do with your Wednesday nights and your other time, but I'm sure you'll find something. Randy, thanks for your service. I'm sure you learned a lot, and thanks again to all of you for being council members. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other comments this evening on voting items?
Council members and mayor and staff, thank you for the opportunity to present my opinions in advance for considering them. I'm John Salmon. I live at 16 Montgomery Avenue. And I think that the proposed Tacoma Park new rental housing tax credit is not really ready yet for prime time. It misses an opportunity to reinforce our community's multicultural values while creating incentives for developers to displace low-income residents. I want to share with the council the reality of the residents of the many low-rise buildings along Maple and Lee Avenues, to whom I've been delivering Meals on Wheels for the last year. When I deliver meals to those buildings, I see many aging people and young legal immigrant families, both of whom are price sensitive. The way this bill is structured, those people would be forced out of their apartments as their out-of-date low-rise buildings are replaced with new high-rise buildings allowed by the master plan. As an architect, I specialized over the last 40 years in evaluating buildings for handicap accessibility. Some of you may recognize Universal Designers and Consultants. If you look in the plaque in the elevator, you'll see our name there, that we donated that elevator to the city. We worked with hundreds of developers, of residential developers in my business. And time and again, I have seen rents rise when residential density increases. Having lived over on Montgomery Avenue for more than 20 years, I know that Tacoma Park is a very desirable location in the DC metro area. Proximity to the metro and to Sligo Creek are tremendously attractive attributes for any residential development. It's my impression that occupancy is high and waiting lists are long to find an apartment in Tacoma Park. The proposed tax credit will provide a strong redevelopment incentive, not to mention the additional incentives to construct 4 million new units nationwide if Vice President Harris is elected. I think it's short-sighted to think that tweaking this bill to include incentives that would maintain and enhance the richness and strength of our diverse community would be considered as significant disincentives for residential development in Tacoma Park. The diversity of Tacoma Park is one of the greatest attributes for many reasons. We have a beautiful community where the privileged are integrated with the less privileged. Our street festivals and weekly markets attest to that reality. Unfortunately, I believe that the way this tax credit is currently structured, our diversity would be reduced. With a little more research and thinking, I'm sure the council can structure a bill that provides incentives that would promote equitable diversity in Tacoma Park and not just developer profits.
Thank you very much. Your time is up.
Thank you again for listening and considering my thoughts.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments on voting items this evening?
If I have a comment on 2, do I get 6 minutes?
No, that's typically not how it works. So if you need
So come
additional
back
time,
again.
I'm sorry.
Come back to comment on the other one separately?
So do you want to do a general public comment or are you asking for additional time?
Well, if I had additional time, that would help. I just wanted to comment on 2 voting items, and I'm not sure how to do that.
Okay. The city clerk, if someone wants to comment on more than one voting item, do they have the ability to take 6 minutes?
It's really your discretion, Mayor.
Yeah.
It's not, it's unusual, but we have done a general public comment and a voting item comment at 6 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We'll make the exception to allow for you to have 6 minutes.
Thank you so much, Mayor Searcy. Please reconsider addressing the issue of displacement in the new rental housing tax credit ordinance. I also share concerns about it, but it seems like you're likely to approve it tonight. If you do, please reconsider an amendment on displacement. I think what would be more acceptable to everyone than what you voted against last week would be to pretty much just pick up the language right out of the MMPA where it talks about how to minimize displacement, and so that an amendment could be in B, a new number 7 under project eligibility. In the event of redevelopment, the project shall give priority to existing eligible residents for the right to return, and property owners shall work with the Montgomery County Department of Housing and Community Affairs, the city and tenants to minimize displacement and to ensure eligible residents receive support and assistance to mitigate impacts of temporary relocation. Nothing controversial about that. It's in the MMPA as a goal. It's not in any ordinance language right now. I would just remind everyone that the mayor, this was not considered by the end of the MMPA process. No one was talking about concerns about displacement being misinformation or being a false narrative. Everyone, the county council, the county planners, the staff, the council, many residents all agreed it made sense to have language in the MMPA about minimizing displacement and how to do that. And in fact, Mayor Searcy wrote in her March 22nd letter to the county council stating the city's support for the MMPA that she recognized the need to pay attention to this issue. Mayor Searcy wrote, "As the minor master plan acknowledges, both the city and council will need to ensure adequate protections for residents at risk of displacement. This major new housing ordinance is obviously an important place for the city to apply the mayor's wise counsel and do just what she said would need to be done." Just in addition, I just want to point out that Carl Elefante, who is the former president of the American Institute of Architects and other local expert, said to the county planning board back in November, commenting on the MMPA. As an architect who devoted decades resuscitating obsolete buildings, he testified, my greatest concern with Montgomery Planning's one-size-fits-all of the study area, the MMP area, is its blindness to the real challenges and opportunities for assuring the future of existing affordable housing along Maple Avenue. Upzoning these properties is far more likely than not to cause wholesale demolition and dislocation of residents. So what I'm suggesting you think about is this would be the nudge factor. Just as staff has said that the tax credit will be a nudge towards developers making their deals work, this is a nudge for their redevelopment deals to work also. It may not be the major factor, it may not be worth demolishing a building over, but it's a nudge in that direction. In other words, the possibility of displacement based on new incentives in the MMPA is real. This credit could provide a further nudge in that direction. Isn't it worth it to add language to this ordinance to try to head off such an unintended consequence? And then on the other credit, the rehabilitation, please strengthen that. And please, I hope that Mayor Searcy, we will have your strong leadership in the next year. And I hope that you will add this to the calendar, not just to review how this tax credit is unfolding, but a whole plan of how to address the rehabilitation of housing in Tacoma Park, because that is such an urgent need. And finally, I do want to thank every council member for serving. I can only imagine how many hours and the stress and the energy that goes into it. Thank you to the staff. Really appreciate your fine work, and I do feel that there's a real openness to residents being able to participate in the process. Really appreciate that. And thank you, Councilmember Seaman, so many years of the love and devotion, really, that you have given to your city and to your constituents. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments on voting items this evening? Come on down.
Thank you, Mayor Searcy. My name's Natalie Hopkins, and I live at 7309 Piney Branch Road. I'm coming to speak about the housing preservation tax credit. I'm really worried about the impact on our city's budget, and I want to know if any study was done regarding the impact. This credit, unlike the new rental credit, would take effect almost immediately. The new rental housing credit, even if someone wanted to build today, we're looking at 4 or 5 years from now. This other credit takes effect almost immediately. And I just didn't see any study on the effects to our budget. And I just remember coming here last year and listening to person after person getting up opposing tax increases. And I know that we're reforming our budget process and getting things more in line with other cities, so we have a better process and more input from citizens. And I think this vote is being rushed and doesn't have sufficient input on the budget. And I mean, I support housing initiatives to help affordable housing, but I have no way of knowing that this will incentivize owners to actually do any improvements. They could just take the money. We don't know how effective it'll be. I don't know. I just think it's being rushed, and I think the vote should be delayed. I know this council wants to vote on it because it's their last session. And again, I want to echo what other people have said. Thank you all for serving. I appreciate it. And I know it's hard to please everyone because you get to listen to everyone come up here. But I just think this is a hasty decision, and I think the vote should be delayed while this is given more consideration because of the immediacy of impact on our budget compared to the other one, which will take years. I don't even think if someone wanted to build a building, it would be done in less than 5 years in the current Montgomery County and regulatory environment. Okay, thank you. That's it.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other public comments on voting items? Okay. Do we have any public comments on general items this evening? General items. Okay. Do we have any virtual public comments this evening? No. We do not. All right. So we're going to move things over to council comments. Councilmember Gibson.
Thank you, Mayor.
couple of things. Co-op is going to reopen on November 6th. I'm glad to see that. And there's a celebration on Friday, November 8th. Many of us are looking forward to this. I also want to just highlight the really excellent Food Forest dedication last Sunday. Delegate Charkoudian gave a nice talk. We had music, and it was quite a good, beautiful mix of music, community, plants, and a beautiful day. And excuse me, Mayor, may take a tad more than the 3 minutes.
Sure.
I'd like to challenge the development narrative that we have been hearing. Environmentalist Bill McKibben explored a critical question: do our economics work for us? McKibben's answer is no, or more accurately, that our current economic models no longer serve us as well as they should, especially the driving paradigm that more is a good proxy for better. He asks us to shed our current belief in the cult of economic growth, seek out new alternatives, challenge economists to provide us with some better models, more options. But along with new economic models, McKibben senses that we will also need a new mental model of the possible. From the website Earth Wizard, quote, communities, much like living organisms, are in a constant state of evolution, guiding this growth to ensure it aligns with residents' needs, aspirations, and values is one of the pivotal roles of local government. By promoting transparency and actively seeking feedback from their residents, local government ensures that the trajectory of community growth is collaborative. The two-way communication and responsibilities of local government make residents stakeholders in their own futures, allowing them to have a say in shaping their own community's destiny. Karen Paralek, author of How to Get By Right Zoning Right, recommends creation of a detailed community vision of the physical elements of the places, including important details about how the buildings must be built to contribute to the public spaces that are our streets and plazas. She also recommends writing prescriptive regulations on what can be built, mostly by focusing on the form of the buildings that shape our public space. For Tacoma Park, I would add that our community vision also focus on the social elements of our places. The possible should include a truly collaborative and detailed community vision for sustainable growth that prioritizes better over more. In so doing, we can design better outcomes with more housing. I challenge our local government to embrace this vision. Tonight, we are rushing to vote on two competing types of tax credits developed by staff. One incentivizes unfocused, market-driven housing development without prioritizing better. The second, which I support, prioritizes identified multifamily housing renovation needs to make them safer and better. To me, the vote is clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Gibson. Councilmember Siemens.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just want to take a minute and thank all those who commented tonight and kissing me goodbye. I want to reassure all my peeps who are out there in TV land watching that this isn't the last you'll see me. I'll be here for one more meeting. Regardless of the results of the election, I'll be here to ratify the election results. So you'll be able to see me one more time up here on the dais, and after that you'll be seeing me from the other side of the podium. But thank you to everyone who has supported me through the years. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Siemens. Councilmember Small.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to pretend like this isn't Terry's last meeting, and then so I'm just going to avoid trying to talk about him and move on to some other things. This may be a little long. It was a long weekend in Ward 6. I'd like to remind everyone that we are having a Halloween party on Sunday. It's the third annual one, and everyone is invited. Both sides of New Hampshire Avenue are invited. Everyone is totally invited. Everyone. In addition to that, we had an exceedingly long weekend because somebody hit an electric pole on New Hampshire Avenue and split it across the road. And so I woke up in the morning to the number 16 bus going past my house. And I was like, what the? Like, the 16 don't go down here. And then for the rest of the day, I watched a really abysmal traffic situation develop. And while there were, and relatively speaking, inordinate number of cops in the area. During this time, someone feisty and maybe put up to it in some sort of organized way decided that they were going to steal somebody's bike. They rode past my house, and I was like, that doesn't look right. And then they rode back past my house with different looking, with the bike without the bags on and someone's Amazon package. And I said, that definitely doesn't look right. And then I saw the 3 people who probably put him up to it. And I know from my own experience and from the other experiences what that potentially means, particularly given that we've had some other incursions of some tagging and some other stuff in the area. And so I say that to say that in the middle of all of these things, we're still having an election. And we are still hoping that it is going to be fair and kind. Unfortunately, realistically, it hasn't been that. I think, in particular, good people are being treated badly or represented badly. And you know who you are if you're doing it. That's pretty much all I can say. But I do know that there are some good people in these races who are sincere about their efforts to want to better a community. And there are some people who think it's fun to mess around with the edges of those things politically. And that's unseemly. There is an illegal election communication in Ward 6 right now. There have been signs taken. Both the mayor and I are pretty sure that there's a poop bandit putting poop in people's yards. But at some point, it can't be the case that we say we are all these things as a community when we are really just all these different kinds of people who've decided that they can live here and tolerate each other, whether it be Black people or immigrants or people of sexual orientation that is not cis, or any number of things. And so I have to say that when I look back on this whole thing and my experience, and I remember, I am more disappointed than I am not. I'm probably may end up having to pursue some things. And it wasn't on me. I say that to say that whoever sits up here next needs to be given the respect and the fairness that they deserve for having put themselves up to be elected. And they need to have the opportunity to know that they are fairly working with their other council members and not being undermined by agendas that are working from outside this room. And so I'd like to go back to talking about Terry now, because I'm just sorry. I'm sorry if I was involved in it. I'm sorry that I'd make people yell at me from the audience. I'm sorry I made people chase me out of the room. I'm sorry I made all these things happen. But I'm not sorry about standing up against genocide or trying to be just. And I'm not sorry about reading things in here. So here we go for the last time, potentially. This is, again, Howard Thurman, who is the spiritual advisor to Martin Luther King. And it's called the Sacrament of Remembrance. I'm going to leave out the extra religious-y parts, but I'm dedicating this to my dear Black friend, Terry. For us, this is a moment of recollection, a sacrament of remembrance. We bring before our minds and our spirits, supported by the sureness of our feeling, those whom we love deeply and their needs, those who are sick of body or tormented mind, those who are now at this moment wrestling with great and eager temptation, who fall again and again and again, those whom we love but find it oh so hard to like, those whom we love but find it oh so hard to trust. We bring them, each one of them, before our minds, and we tarry in and with their spirits. We remember the little children. We call to mind those who we have had and lost, those whom we have longed to have had but never had, those to whom we can never have, and those whose lives will never bless our own, because for us, the time, the season has passed. All of the children of the world, those we know well and intimately, those whose stories have crept into our minds through word of mouth or through devious ways, the hungry children, the destitute children, the starving, frightened, scarred, bedraggled children. We bring quietly and sensitively before our minds and spirits all the children. We remember the old and the aging, those who have banked their fires long since and are waiting in the wings for the final shuffle across the stage. Those who have been deserted and left in their solitariness, their loneliness, even their memories shattered. We bring before our minds and spirits the old and aging. We do these things in this way because they are sacred. If the democracy isn't sacred, then none of this is sacred. And if you don't treat it or the people up here with respect, whether it be the respect of a peer or a colleague, you are doing a disservice to American democracy. And so thank you, Terry, very much for being my friend.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Small. Councilmember DeBala.
Thank you. Well, what I have to say is nothing nearly so eloquent. And I was going to just fast forward over the Terry part till the next meeting. Otherwise, I'm going to tear up. So park that one. I have three things, and I might very well go over this particular time. Oddly enough, I was also thinking about the election. I got a very generous donation from someone from out of state. And when you look at the campaign report, the finance report that I file after the election, along with all the others that are publicly available on the city website, so you can look and see how things are funded and where the money's going. So that's my first thought. But I started thinking about how it might be perceived in the current climate that we are in this week before the election. And I am particularly concerned about two things. One is assumptions based on what happened 4 years ago. I think I'm fair in saying that somebody would look at that donation and immediately assume things that are not true. So it's just something I would really like everybody to keep in mind between now and Tuesday, because we are better. We are better than this here in Tacoma Park. And the other thing that's on my mind is thank you for all of you who brought your opinions and were very clear in your beliefs and opinions on your on what you said tonight. Especially those of you who are new. It's great to see people who don't come every week. But there's a lot of opinions out there masquerading as facts right now, and that is troubling to me. And I bet I'm not the only one. So again, keeping that in mind as we all go to vote between now and November 5th at the local and at the state and at the federal level. So thank you for that. That was my first thing. Second thing, a couple of announcements. Thank you from Munster Bash staff, paraders. It was just great. Volunteers. It was a fabulous afternoon. I will be at the polls like many of the candidates on election day for part of the time. I will then be at the Maryland Municipal League meeting, and then I will be at the National League of Cities meeting. So I will not be here personally, but I will be here virtually for the community budget meeting and for the final certification meeting on the 13th. Wanted to explain my apparent absence when you all see the empty chair. Third thing, so as this is primarily to the rest of the council. So as the council's liaison to the Sustainable Maryland Committee, just to wrap up a loose end for this council. So as you all remember, in July, the Sustainable Maryland Committee came to us, talked about two things. One was food waste and laid out some ideas for us. So we talked about what more information we would need as a council to consider some of the options they kicked around, asked them to do that. And I had drafted a resolution to potentially share this guidance with the rest of the committee. And so just so everybody knows what happened, just to wrap the loop. Since then, events have overtaken us. The committee got their feedback from Sustainable Maryland Program. The committee has developed a work plan for their next year. They've broken into subgroups. The subgroup on food waste is already researching items that had been on the list in the potential in the draft resolution. So there's no real need in my mind or in staff or in committee's mind to pursue a resolution at this time, plus we are out of time. So I just wanted everybody to know that that's where we're at with that, and the committee, I understand, has asked to meet with the new council later in the winter as a green team sometime in the winter to hear, so the new council can hear all about the efforts that they've put into this and the other topics. So I only have one last thing. For those of you who are field hockey fans, there must be some out there. Go Blair. They're going to the quarterfinals, the state quarterfinals. Just saying. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember DeBala. Councilmember Honzak.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody who came out. It is really nice to see new faces out there. Okay, a few quick thank yous actually for the last week between last council meeting and today. I would like to thank the Sligo Station Condominium Building for hosting me last weekend. We had a really nice sit-down conversation with a new group of people who I hadn't met with. And I just want to highlight somebody really interesting that I met who is a newer resident to our city, who is a school teacher. I won't name him because I didn't ask him if I could name him publicly, but he said that he is running a school bus, a biking school bus to the school that he's working at, which is not in Tacoma Park. But I said, wow, what a cool concept. Is that something that you're networked with other schools on? And he said, no, not to my knowledge. And I said, let's bring it in here and let's hear from you. So that was fun. And then I also want to say thank you to Essex House, who hosted me for a few hours on Friday. Met lots of new residents who I hadn't met before. And also I want to thank the planning staff and Mayor Searcy and Councilmember Fulcher, who came, as well as the residents who came last night to talk about the East Silver Spring Communities Plan and dive deep with the planning staff. That was an interesting conversation last night. This Saturday, November 2nd, will be Community Day. The Maple Community Association that co-hosted the Juneteenth Festival with us is doing a Community Day at Tacoma Park Middle School from 1 to 4. And this Sunday, I hope that anybody who likes to walk or run or just be outdoors will come run in the Long Branch Fun Run at 8 a.m. You can register on site and you'll get a t-shirt and it's lots of fun. Comes through Ward 5 and it supports our small businesses all throughout the Ward 5 and Long Branch area. So please consider coming out and cheering or joining the race. And I also want to say thank you to our staff, many of whom were extremely supportive on multiple fronts this week. You know who you are. Many of you are in this room. I just really appreciate how much time you spent with me to solve some really challenging individual issues and brainstorm with me. It was wonderful, and we have an incredible staff in this city. And I too am going to wait to say my thank yous to Terry, because it's been a real honor to sit next to Terry up here, and I actually can't imagine serving without Terry by my side. And I'm going to stop there right now today.
Thank you, Councilmember Honzak. Councilmember Fulcher.
Thank you. First, I want to thank everyone who came out to give comment, especially those that had gratitude that they directed to staff and to Councilmember Siemens. I find those to be very heartwarming. So thank you for that. I do want to say that though we didn't do a study on the preservation or renovation tax credits, we were able to actually calculate the cost of those two taxes because we know the number of buildings that those would be for, and we're also setting an amount of money that would be given for the tax credits for the renovations. We would be setting a limit. Furthermore, these were developed by staff at the direction from council. It will take time for us to iron everything out, and there will also be an application process. And I want to reiterate this council's commitment to fiscal responsibility and to supporting living in our rental housing with dignity. I want to, moving on to stuff that happened last week, I had a nice time at the MHP breakfast with Mayor Searcy, and was excited to see council members that represent Tacoma Park, both Kate Stewart and Evan Glass and Javier from the Crossroads, and other members of this community that just wanted to be there, even though they don't have a title that means that they support affordable housing. They themselves are committed to affordable housing, and so they were at that event. I want to thank staff also for the staff and our community for a good time at the Monster Bash. A Girl Scout troop that I help with set up a tent and gave out candy and had the best time of their life and are looking forward to coming back next year. I was also at the Food Forest dedication. It was really special to me. I was sitting with my back to the classroom that I was in, where I took my first government and politics at Montgomery College, which had a big impact on what made me want to go into government. So it was, really nice to be there. Had a nice time with Councilmember Honzak at One Blair yesterday, which One Blair is a group within the SGA, and we were there to talk about partisanship in politics during the election. And Councilmember Honzak and I did our best to be very polite and inviting to the other person that was there who might not belong to the same political party as we do, but that we appreciated that she came all the way from Potomac, Maryland, in order to be there for the students at Blair. So that was really kind of her. Tomorrow I'll be attending the MWCOG Transportation Board Regional Roadway Safety Summit, which I have a lot going on right now, but I could not be going to something that I'm more excited about. So looking forward to that tomorrow. And then also looking forward to attending the MML conference and bunking with Cindy one night, or sorry, Councilmember Dybala one night. So looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Fulcher. And I want to echo the sentiments around appreciation and gratitude for all of the residents that have provided insights in the past few weeks on these proposals. I know it feels fast, right? And for me, it feels really slow. We first started talking about the need to develop criteria and approaches for our pilots, which is in essence what this is. I would say as part of the Housing and Economic Strategic Plan back in 2019. And I distinctly remember I had a property that was undergoing a multi-million-dollar renovation, Colonnades at the Creek. And they needed a pilot, but we didn't have a policy. And so I had to fight to try to use ARPA dollars to get the money to the developer so that they could build this 100% affordable, completely renovated housing on New Hampshire, off of New Hampshire Avenue, which had been the bane of my existence. And if you ask Mark Elridge, even when he was on council, that property was the bane of all of our existence because it was just so deployed, it was so bad. And so to have them do that investment, but to not have the ability to clearly communicate how we could support a property like that was frustrating. So I've been thinking about living, breathing, eating, sleeping pilots or payment in lieu of taxes or tax credits to try to help incentivize affordable housing creation, incentives to try to build new housing in our city for years. So again, it may be a rush for some, but for me, this has been a 7-year process of trying to move the needle forward inch by inch, strategic plan, the housing economic strategic plan, and then trying to move it through individual projects of value, and then continuing to have conversations with property managers or developers in our community and hearing them say over and over again, what can you do to help us? And then putting it into our council priorities and making it something that's part of our budget priorities and making it as part of, so it just kept going inch by inch by inch by inch for years. And so for us to now be at a point where we have ordinances and something drafted, for me, is quite frankly transformational and a highlight of my first term as mayor. That and having windows now at the library. It's really important. And there's brick going up. So, you know, again, I appreciate all of the feedback and the comments that we've received. And I fully understand, you know, that we have to be mindful of the impacts of said credits and the cost implications of them. But I also consider these credits that we're voting on tonight to be one additional tool in a toolbox that we have. It's a hammer, it's a screwdriver. We still need measuring tape. We still need nails. We still need other tools like our rent stabilization laws, like displacement and furthering some of our displacement ordinances and making sure that we're moving the needle forward in those other areas. But I do think that what we're talking about tonight is a really important first step to get us out of this rut of not having new housing built in this city in multiple decades. So again, I appreciate everyone, your feedback and your thoughts, but I also appreciate my colleagues as we're moving this particular issue another step forward. I want to give my kudos. So the joys of going last is people remind you of awesome things that happen in the week. And quite frankly, a lot of this stuff is a blur to me. Thank you so much. I enjoyed the MHP breakfast. It is, and had the pleasure of sitting alongside Councilmember Fulcher, County Council Member, Vice President Kate Stewart, but also to have an opportunity to hear some of the resident stories of the people who live in the properties, to see some of our own City of Tacoma Park residents on a video highlighting some of the support that they've received through their landlord and the helps that they've been providing was really, really, really special. And so I do appreciate having that opportunity to kind of see how affordable housing goes beyond just providing housing. In many instances, for a lot of our nonprofit developers, the good ones at least, care about the people too. Thank you so much, Councilmember Honzak, for organizing your meeting last night with the planning staff. I want to thank Montgomery County Planning for indulging my questions around the plan. But it was really interesting as they're tackling upgrades to the is it called the Long Branch, or do they have a new one? East Silver Spring. They're always changing the names. East Silver Spring plan. So I appreciate that. And then lastly, I do just want to thank our rec department, our staff, like across the board, from Public Works to rec department to our police department, all of the folks who were instrumental in making sure that Monster Bash happened. It was so awesome. It was just such an amazing opportunity to just engage with so many kids in our community. But more importantly, you know, it's always fun to just convene and just be together. So I appreciate everyone for participating in that. And also, just as a reminder, unfortunately, I will be traveling for work next week, so I will not be able to attend the MML conference or the co-op ribbon cutting. I'm upset about that. I really wanted to make sure that I would be there next Friday for that. But I do want to encourage people to Terry will be attending in my stead, but I do want to encourage all of my colleagues safe travels and to bring back some fantastic ideas that we may be able to implement in the City of Tacoma Park. Yes, I sent that email. I'm not available, but I know who is. Councilmember Siemens will cut that ribbon. So thank you so much, Councilmember Siemens, for filling in my stead. And so with that, I will turn things over to our City Manager DeSpirito for City Manager comments.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council, and our guests tonight. From the Police Department. The Police Department announces their winter coat drive. Do you have coats, gloves, or scarves that you don't need anymore? You can donate them. The Tacoma Park Police Department, in partnership with Adventist Church, the Tacoma Park Volunteer Fire Department, and others, will be collecting clean, gently used warm coats in any size from infant to adult. The coats will be donated to people in need. This coat drive can make a difference in the lives of others by your simply donating coats and jackets that are no longer needed. We will also accept clean, gently used gloves, mittens, and scarves. A large box will be in the lobby of the Tacoma Park Police Department at 7500 Maple Avenue, beginning Monday, November 4th, and will remain in the lobby until Friday, December 27th. The Tacoma Park Police Department will ensure that they are given to those in need during and after the drive. Please do not drop off before the collection date starts. You may contact Kathy Plevy at Kathy with a C, P at tacomaparkmd.gov with any questions, and thank you in advance for your generosity. From the Public Works Department. Public Works Department is scheduled to begin paving streets the week of November 4th through November 15th. Streets this year will include Wabash Avenue between Flower Avenue and Eastridge Avenue, the 8100 and 8200 blocks of Roanoke Avenue, the 600 block of Houston Avenue, Jackson Avenue from MD 410 Ethan Allen Avenue to Sligo Creek Parkway, the 7000 block of Aspen Avenue, the New Hampshire Service Road from Holton Lane to Glenside Drive, and finally Erskine Street from MD 650 New Hampshire Avenue to the city line. From the Recreation Department, as alluded earlier, this past Saturday, Tacoma Park Recreation Department had its annual Monster Bash program with a crowd of approximately 1,500 plus that attended. Attendees were entertained by a DJ, face painters, balloon twisters, numerous roving entertainment, and a band, Grandsons Jr. Excuse me. The Trunk or Treat, held at the Tacoma Park Middle School, was also a success with 10 vendors handing out candy to all of the kids. Thank you to those vendors, the Tacoma Park Police Department, Small Things Matter, FedEx, Tacoma Park Lions Club, Bright Light Baptist Church, Care First, Discover Fun Camp, Friends of the Library, Maryland Physicians Care, UMD's Water Emergency Team, and Girl Scouts Troop 1165. The most fun part of the day was the parade where everyone walked in costume from Tacoma Park Middle School to Maple Avenue in front of Piney Branch Elementary School. As everyone was walking onto Maple Avenue, the Grandsons Junior Band had the crowd rocking to a litany of tunes. Also on Maple was a 40-foot inflatable obstacle course, which everyone really enjoyed. A huge thank you to the Recreation Department, Public Works, and the Tacoma Park Police Department for making this event such a success. And finally, from the City Manager's Office, I'd like to invite our residents to attend the city's Budget Public Forum on Tuesday, November 12th at 7 p.m. here in this auditorium. The city is offering this opportunity early in the FY 2026 budget development process. Staff will describe the financial challenges before us and try to have a true dialogue with our residents, including encouraging them to share with city staff their ideas, suggestions, questions, and comments. This open forum will supplement the budget survey for the community that can be found online at the city's website, as well as a paper version in the new November edition of the Tacoma Park newsletter. This week's staff shout out is from our Recreation Department. Would like to extend kudos to all Recreation staff for the excellent Monster Bash this past Saturday. Each of you are to be commended for the effort that you put into organizing this event. A special kudos goes to John Webster for leading the way in organizing such a worthwhile event, and to Chelsea Nunez for going above and beyond and arriving at 7 a.m., 3 hours before the scheduled time, to assist John in setting up. And this concludes my report for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, City Manager DeSpirito. Okay, and we're going to move into our voting session. I would like to move that we go a little out of order, just in the interest of break, for the voting items. I would like for us to address items 1, 2, 6, 7, and 8, and then we will have a break, and then we will vote on items 3, 4, and 5. Any opposition? Okay, perfect. All right, so we are going to, first, I guess, because we're going to deal with the budget ordinances. Would someone like to move that the council convene as a stormwater management board for the purpose? Thank you, Councilmember DeBala. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councilmember Gibson. I'm just trying to make sure we have enough folks here. All those, oh, sorry, I guess, given that we're now the Stormwater Management Board, we are addressing the second reading ordinance approving FY25 Budget Amendment Number 2, General Fund and Stormwater. Would someone like to move the, thank you, Councilmember DeBala. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councilmember Gibson, for seconding. With that, would the city clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Fulcher? Councilmember DeBala?
Yes.
Councilmember Gibson?
Yes.
Councilmember Siemens?
Aye.
Councilmember Honzak?
Aye.
Councilmember Small? Mayor Searcy?
Aye. Okay.
Aye.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Small. Okay, second item, we are no longer the Stormwater Management Board. Now we have the second reading ordinance approving the FY25 Budget Amendment Number 2,
So moved.
ARPA reallocations. Thank you, Councilmember Small, for moving, Councilmember DeBala for seconding. Are there any questions, points of discussion? Okay, would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Fulcher?
Yes.
Councilmember DeBala?
Yes.
Councilmember Gibson?
Yes.
Councilmember Siemens?
Aye.
Councilmember Honzak?
Aye.
Councilmember Small?
Aye.
Mayor Searcy?
Aye. Okay, and for those that stepped away for a second, we agreed to hold items 3, 4, and 5 until after break, and we're moving to vote on item 6.
Okay.
Would someone like to move the single reading ordinance approving multifamily building improvement grants? Councilmember DeBala, do I have a second?
Second.
Councilmember Siemens, second. I caught him first.
I have a statement.
Yes. Any points of discussion, Councilmember
Yes,
Small?
I would like to say again, although it is effectively moot, that I think that the amendment to this ordinance was dangerous and disincentivizes taking care of the poorest in our community.
Multifamily?
We're talking about multifamily grants.
6.
Oh, wait. Which,
We jumped up to 6.
We're on number.
We're doing the single reading ordinance approving multifamily building improvement grants.
oh, yeah, that's different. Yeah, that's not bad.
Okay. All right, would the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor?
Oh, sorry,
If I
Councilmember
may, I
Siemens.
just
Yes.
thank my colleagues for voting for this in support of the Leland Apartments. This is an example of something that the Housing Department has worked on in helping the tenants to acquire that building. And this is the next step forward in helping them. And I think it's a great example of how the city has worked to preserve affordable housing in Tacoma Park. And it's an alternative to some of the other ways that we've done that. Thank you.
Thank you very
Mayor,
much,
as a point of
Councilmember
order, I
Siemens.
wanted to make sure I said that, like, I'm totally in favor of this. I thought we were talking about the other thing.
It's okay.
They're both.
Thank you very much. All right, would the city clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Fulcher,
Aye.
Councilmember DeBala,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibson.
Yes.
Councilmember Siemens.
Aye.
Councilmember Hanzak,
Yes.
Councilmember Small,
Yes, yes,
Mayor
y'all.
Searcy.
Aye. Okay, we're moving to item number 7, single reading ordinance approving the procurement of 12 police patrol vehicles. Would someone like to move it?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Small moved, Councilmember Siemens seconded. Are there any points of discussion here?
I have one there. I'd just like to say that I appreciate this council being clear-headed about the realities of trying to take care of an aging fleet, notwithstanding the lofty environmental goals that we may have and that every community in America may have for their police department. So as a result, all those cars are on back order. I appreciate the fact that we both did not make a purchase of cars when we said we were going to earlier, and that all of these cars are more than necessary. I appreciate the efforts that the city made to ameliorate the concerns of council members, even if they were irrational. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Small. Any other points of any other comments or points of order before we call the vote?
Yes, agreed. I was going to offer a additional whereas, which I sent around. Some of you may not have seen it because it was today. Speaking of the lofty environmental goals, a simple whereas to acknowledge that we are in fact working on the electrification plan and moving ahead with trying to address our goals in the long run. So whereas the city is developing a fleet electrification plan to address the practical and funding issues arising in meeting the city's goal to transition to EV vehicles where possible. And so just a statement that we are working on it.
I would say, Cindy, that I do find that a tad superfluous because of what it says at the beginning parts, because of the lack of, I mean, like if, I don't think that we need to be so declarative about things that we've already said a couple of times. I don't disagree with what you were saying, and if it passes, I'm cool with it, but I do find it to be a tendency that this council started to develop about over explaining or over emphasizing things and making the drafting a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, in the cover sheet, it makes that very, very clear. In the resolution ordinance proper, it doesn't. Yeah, point made.
Yeah,
It is, has been said before.
Yeah, like I said, I got no qualms. Like if it passes, I'm not gonna be apoplectic about it. But I just want.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor to add a whereas clause to this ordinance. Is there a second? Councilmember Fulcher seconds. All those in favor of adding Councilmember DeBala's whereas clause, and I just want to confirm, it would be which number whereas?
I have it as the third. I would take it on staff advice whether it should be some other place.
I think that third is fine. I think
Yeah, because
I would accept it.
It does.
I'd accept
restate
it as
the
friendly
obvious.
if it was the third one. I would draw my concerns.
Okay, so Councilmember DeBala's whereas clause, can you please repeat that language?
Okay, whereas the city is developing a fleet electrification plan to address practical and funding issues arising in meeting the city's goal to transition to EV vehicles where possible.
I just want to confirm with the city management that is indeed what we are doing. That is indeed what we are doing. Okay, verbatim. All right. Okay, excellent. Okay. All right. It's been a lot going on, Councilmember DeBala, sorry. All those in favor of Councilmember DeBala's third whereas clause, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Any abstain? You abstain.
I
Okay.
abstain.
So that's 1, 2, 3, 5 yays, 1 nay, 1 abstain. Okay, so the motion moves. All right. So with that, although,
I have one comment I'd like to make before
Sure,
we vote on
Councilmember
this.
Siemens.
And just point out to all the people at home who are wondering why are we buying 12 cars, and maybe they haven't been paying attention through the weeks that this has gone on and the years this has gone on. But the problem has been in acquiring the electric vehicles and the hybrids. And we have allowed the existing fleet that we have to be used and overused to the point where they are, as Councilmember Small says, dilapidated. And that's why we're moving forward with procuring the vehicles that we need to keep people on the road and serving this community. Thank you.
thank you, Councilmember Siemens. All right,
Mayor, may I?
Councilmember Gibson.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that with the delay in getting the 5 hybrid vehicles, months or how, we don't know how long, I was very much in favor of meeting that immediate need. The balance between 5 and 13, I'm not in favor of. As I read the administrative policy, it says vehicle replacements or additions will be considered during the FRC process in advance of the development of the city's annual budget. So I do think this does a disservice to the next council that will be doing, which will be facing difficulties in terms of balancing the budget. So.
Thank you, Councilmember Gibson. I see a lot of lights. I don't want to call the vote.
You can go ahead and call
All
it,
right.
'cause I'd like to reply.
Yep, so, okay, so we've already, we have an amended version of the ordinance on the floor. I mean, of the ordinance on the floor. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Fulcher,
Yes.
Councilmember Duvall,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibson,
Nay.
Councilmember Siemens,
Aye.
Councilmember Hotzak,
Aye.
Councilmember Small,
Yes, y'all.
Mayor Searcy.
Aye. Okay, and the item number 8 is the resolution on removal of unlawful restrictive covenants.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Small.
Second.
Second.
I'd like to
Council-
comment.
All right, I just want to make sure that we're clear. Councilmember Small moved, Councilmember DeBala seconded. Any points of discussion?
Yes.
Councilmember Small.
Thank you, Mayor. I did want to reiterate the fact that I am happy that we are going forward with this, but extremely disappointed in the fact that it is not done during the term in which I actually lobbed a Hail Mary to myself and actually passed this bill single-handedly. It's never going to be the case that anyone else passed this bill single-handedly but me. Notwithstanding that, the reason for passing this bill is unseemly and uncomfortable and goes all the way back to the common law and the Crown. The commitments that were made by organizations, in particular Historic Tacoma and Jim, to keep this issue in the front and forefront of the minds of the residents here, as reluctant as some of them may have been, has been a really edifying thing to know, and it has been a really good thing to get to know Historic Tacoma under different circumstances and terms. I would reiterate that as a city that spends a lot of time on its own self-aggrandizement as a community of worth and value, there are undercurrents and undertones of very unseemly things that animate a lot of the things here. And racism is one of them. Benign racism is probably worse than any other kind because people can look at you in the face and say things to you that you would be shocked to hear. And so for the city to make the commitment of even spending the dollars necessary to do this when we are known as the most liberal city in America would have mattered. It would have mattered. And so I hope that for whatever reason, if it was political or otherwise, or it was inadvertent agendaing or whatever else it was, that we can think about moving this actual community forward on fair and equitable terms for every household here.
Thank you, Councilmember Small. Councilmember DeBala?
Yes, I support this, obviously. And I agree with most of what Council Member Small said, particularly moving this action forward. To me, solving the legislative hurdle is one way to move it forward. It's not the only way, but it is based on the reaction we've gotten from our delegation, I think it's not going to be slow. I think it's going to be done in one session, and then we'll be able to move. And I very much want to bring this back up in the spring, because I do want to see this move forward. A lot of these properties are in wards 2 and 6, and that's probably part of why we feel so strongly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I do just want to thank Councilmember DeBala, Councilmember Small, our staff, and Jim Douglas and Historic Tacoma for all of the work that has gone into getting everyone familiar with the requirements, really trying to get to the root issue and some of the challenges with implementation. And my hope, while of course the priority is to address the needs within the city of Tacoma Park to right these historic wrongs, I think my priority and my hope is to make it easier for other communities to do the same. And I think the resolution that is before us establishes that as a priority as well, in terms of helping other cities and other municipalities within the state to remove these restrictive covenants with ease and without undue added cost to their city coffers, which could serve as a barrier and keep these items on the books. So with that, all those in favor of the resolution on the removal of the unlawful restricted covenants, please say aye. Aye. Do we have any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, great. So we're going to take a 10-minute break, and then we will come back with items 3, 4, and 5. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you to my colleagues for beating me back to the dais for my break. Um, and just as a reminder to all, we have three last voting items. The first is a second reading ordinance amending Title VI of the Tacoma Park Code to add provisions to create a housing preservation tax credit. The second is a second reading ordinance amending Title VI of the Tacoma Park Code to add provisions to create a new rental housing tax credit. And the third is a resolution directing staff to develop and budget for multifamily rehabilitation tax credits. One thing that I would like to introduce and would like for my colleagues on council to support me in this, and that is a motion to request our city staff to draft an ordinance regarding tenant protections, which would include displacement, as well as aspects of quality of life amenities within the buildings.
Second that.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Siemens seconded. And I do want to give a little bit of background regarding this motion. There's been a lot of discussion about the need for fleshing out other aspects of the definitions of displacement, the definitions of things like resident services as they relate to our deed restricted properties and LIHTC properties. And I feel that it is important for us to make sure, one, that these items are discussed as it relates to landlord-tenant issues more broadly, which is in a separate section of the code, and two, that it would then give us more time, including engaging with residents, to really flesh out what we mean by displacement and what we mean by the requirements and how they're different or how they align with the county. And I think that this is a great way for us to do that. It would not preclude those items to still be in effect as it relates to these credits. It's just that those issues would be addressed in a separate and perhaps more appropriate section of the code, which, given that our current ordinances already include boilerplate language, which requires eligible entities of the tax credits to adhere to our city laws and regs, it would allow for there to be the ability to make future changes in terms of our, and make them applicable to these credits in terms of our landlord tenant operations. Are there any questions regarding?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I see a lot of lights, so I just want to make sure. I will go in the order of the lights, but I want to make sure if you are not asking a question or point of comment, if you could please turn your light off. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go in order. Councilmember Small, you're first.
I understood what you started to say, but I didn't understand the end of what you said.
Sure.
I'm trying to figure out how much of what you said is the motion.
Yeah. So just to repeat, the motion is to have city staff to develop or to to amend our section of the code related to landlord tenants rights, to address aspects of displacement as it relates to construction, as well as elements of resident services and our authorities there. The reason being,
Okay, so bam.
Yep.
And then, okay.
Yep. And the reason being, we don't want to muck up our credit section of the code
I think that's
to
right.
address what actually makes sense to be as part of the landlord tenant.
That makes complete sense to me. It got fuddled.
Yeah, no worries. Councilmember Gibson.
I was asking, needed to hear that again.
Yeah,
So
no
that's
worries.
helpful to me, and I fully support.
Thank you. Councilmember Siemens.
Thank you, Mayor, and I thank you for putting that motion before us tonight. I just like to comment to the general public that, this is something that we have heard from you, concerns about displacement. We've been talking about the fact that, this is also a concern to council members, and that the items that we're voting on tonight are not the proper way to address that. I especially thank Colleen Cordes for coming here tonight and once more reminding us that it's important. We certainly have agreed with you right along, but in working through the how to implement it and where to implement it, the ordinance that the mayor has just proposed is the best and cleanest way to do that. So I thank you and everybody else that's been talking about this for so long. And I fully support the mayor's proposal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Siemens. Councilmember DeBala.
Yes, I was going to say something similar, which is that the city staff suggested, or as I said last week, the city staff suggested we do 3 sessions. And the second one, this one being about the tax credits, 2 being about resident displacement, something I've been talking about our council needing to address for quite a long time. And I think this is cutting straight to the chase, and I very much support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember DeBala. Councilmember Honzak.
Yes, thank you. I also want to express my very strong support, and I appreciate the collaborative effort that went into making this a nice, clean, a clean motion. I just want to explain that one of my additional key concerns was about resident services and making sure that as we potentially pass these tax credits, that we are really making sure that our regulations and our code is calling for what we need to be in place to make sure that our residents are getting the services that I think they are entitled to within their buildings. And I think we need, carrots and sticks. So I'm looking forward to these next sessions in which we'll flesh that out.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Honzak. Councilmember Small, do you have another point?
Just a little bit. I just did want to say very explicitly, echo Terry's comments to Colleen. One of the things about being up here that's been cool is that Colleen has been eminently reasonable in conversating after either I speak or she speaks about a subject, and she is taking considerations into heart in the way in which she presents things, and she got a win today, and so she should feel good about that, I think.
Thank you, Councilmember Small. And again, I want to thank all of the residents for all of your feedback. This is something that, as others have mentioned, the council has been really interested in trying to flesh out. It's just trying to figure out the right time and the right place and where to put things. And I think that this approach provides us with that opportunity. And also, one of the things that we have heard is that wanting to make sure that the future councils also have a role to play. And so that is the case where a future council would have a role in shaping some of our landlord-tenant adjustments in terms of displacements and the like. Councilmember Gibson, do you have another point?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up after a couple of comments, particular Councilmember Siemens. I don't think that this motion necessarily precludes the advantages of a certain amount of redundancy or to inclusions in the tax credit proposals that are here. That I just wanted to say that I fully support what you propose, but it does not preclude that we use language that just dissuades us, or not dissuades us, that helps show our intent to prevent displacement, particularly in the new rental housing tax credit.
I actually disagree respectfully when it comes to how do we make sure that we're creating a clean code that is able and logical to follow. So I do think that it is important for us to make sure that we have the right policies in the right places. And then that way, when there are amendments down the line, it doesn't require our attorney or others to have to go through and comb an entire entire code to find random references to things, it is a lot easier for us to, once we flesh out the requirements for displacement that we want to see, to make sure that those elements are fleshed out in the appropriate section of the code. So Councilmember Siemens?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to add that, we've heard a lot about displacement and concerns about displacement. But in fact, that's the whole reason why we did the minor master plan. And we have been seeing displacement of renters in the city over the past few years with conversions of rental units to condominiums that have removed a lot of our affordable housing from the city housing stock. And that's one of the reasons that the MMPA was a way to address the housing and find a plan for continuing to not just preserve the affordable housing that we have now, but investigate ways that we might even increase the amount of affordable housing. So we get hung up on this displacement, but there's the whole issue of affordable housing is much larger than that.
Thank you, Councilmember Siemens. Councilmember Small?
Thank you, Mayor. I would go further than that to say that objectively, one of the things that gets tossed around in the air in order to give, I guess, the appearance of propriety as opposed to the appearance of impropriety is displacement. But to think of an actual section of a code that expresses the concerns of the council or the future council and indicates all of the well-heard concerns of the populace is the kind of thing that people dream of generally, because it is cleaner and it is an explicit declaration of what it is that you can and can't do. You can even name it something. You can be like, well, this act, it's out of compliance with that. But I can tell you that given the number of redundancies with regard to displacement between the county and us, and maybe even the state, it is superfluous to muck up a pretty good piece of legislation with a undue desire to make it feel better to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Small. Councilmember DeBall?
Yeah, agreed. And I meant to point out when I talked a moment ago that there are three ordinances. They coordinate, they complement each other. Three credits. Two of them are by ordinance, one is by resolution. So there are three credits, they complement each other. Two of them are for existing multifamily housing. So to me, the package is what I'm focused on, not just any one. And I agree, I think the place to put any additional protections that may be required or desired is in the section of the rental code that deals with that already, because we do have some protections in there already, as does the county. Again, following up on what Councilmember Small said. So I'm good with this. Thank you.
Great. All right, so let's go ahead and call the vote on the motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Do you have any opposed? Any abstain? Okay. Just want to do a quick check-in, make sure staff has what they need. Okay, perfect. All right, so first item up is a second reading ordinance amending Title VI of the Tacoma Park Code to add provisions to create a housing preservation tax credit. Would someone like to move it?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Small. Thank you, Councilmember Siemens.
Discussion.
Any points of discussion?
Yes, Mayor, thank you.
Actually,
Oh,
When did you call?
we just called the,
Question.
no worries, the housing preservation tax credit.
And I didn't mean to speak over it, I thought, because I was
Did
already
we-
in the
did
middle of
we-
the thing.
We have not done the new.
Thank you.
That's
Yes,
gonna
we
be the
did
next one.
We
We're
did,
doing
okay,
it.
thank you.
Yep. Okay, so housing preservation tax credit is what we're voting on. All right. Any points of discussion?
Me.
Okay. Councilmember Small?
Yes, I did want to say that I I do think that we should do more to incentivize the upkeep of the buildings that are supporting the least among us. And I think that the taxes that are being given back to developers or landlords with this change is a difficult pill for me to swallow. And that is all.
Thank you, Councilmember Small. Councilmember Honzak?
At the risk of sounding a bit redundant for what I just said a moment ago, I want to really repeat it with respect to this tax credit, because I share some similar sentiments with Councilmember Small. I am not eager to see housing preservation tax credits being given to any landowner who, for example, is not the best keeper of their building. And that goes from the actual infrastructure of the building and upkeep and reinvesting in the building to also supporting resident services, which I just mentioned a moment ago. I therefore, I had actually drafted an amendment tonight that I'm not going to put forward because it was not fully fleshed out, and I have come to the conclusion that we will and we can, based on the resolution that we just passed, that we will draft these regulations to make sure that these things are addressed through our existing city regulations related to tenants' rights. And so I feel at peace doing that and moving forward with this particular tax credit, but because this was difficult for me to accept that this was the right step forward. But again, I too see these as a package, and without the package, it would be hard for me to move forward.
Thank you, Councilmember Honzak. Councilmember DeBala?
Yes, so since last week, I've thought more about the bad actors in the deed restricted category in terms of property owners. And so I think we've agreed that we want to deal with that issue under administrative regulations and deal with it specifically in the eligibility for credits section. So my question to staff before I actually propose anything is whether we need to put either in the code or in the preamble to the ordinance a statement that the council in this particular case would like to see the administrative regulations come back to us. Or is it good enough for us to be saying that here tonight, maybe a hand vote, but something that signals that for sure we expect the eligibility issue that my two council members have just raised to come to be discussed during the to be considered during the development of the administrative regulations, and that we, the council, would like, or whoever the council is at that point, would like to see. I keep forgetting that there's a change coming, but just the point being, do we need to write it down anywhere, and if so, where? Then I have a couple of alternatives to propose.
I see the city manager. I see your light. You have a response to that?
Sure. Thank you for the question. And from my standpoint, we've received ample direction through this conversation. I don't see any objections to that. And I'll say, unless anyone wants to correct me, I'm assuming that this is majority direction to staff to do so, and we intend to.
Excellent.
Yeah? Okay. All right.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I am good with it.
Thank you.
I think it makes sense. I understand the packaging of the whole thing, and I think that the consideration toward bad actors that is coming out of this is positive. It's just that and the budget part, and so it's not like I'm not gonna say yes, but I do think like, I wish we hadn't added them.
Okay, so based on that, I don't have any amendment to propose right now, and it's
Okay.
up to you if you want to take a hand vote.
Nope, it seems like everyone is okay with making sure, and I'm just checking with the city clerk just to make sure that we have that on our rolling agenda for the upcoming council. Councilmember Hanzak?
I also want to make it clear that that is satisfactory to me, because it's really, really an important issue to me. And I also want to reassure my residents who are wondering, hey, how are we going to stick the teeth into some of our own buildings management? I think you know who you are, you know which buildings you live in. They are not just going to get this tax credit just for nothing. Some of them are not getting it right now, and they will become eligible if we pass this right now. So I want to be really clear that I did clarify that we will have time to vote on any recommended amendments from the staff before these tax credits would actually get applied to any of those buildings. So we will have time to sink the teeth in. Okay, so please be assured of that. That's really important to me.
I appreciate the newfound tenacity by the council member from Ward 5.
All right, thank you so much. And just as a reminder for all, the amendment or the tax credits are not anticipated to be finalized until the FY27 budget.
Number 2?
Yep, all of them. All right, so seeing no additional lights, would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Fulcher,
Yes.
Councilmember Dvala,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibson.
Yes.
Councilmember Siemens.
Aye.
Councilmember Hanzak.
Aye.
Councilmember Small.
Aye.
Mayor Searcy.
Aye. Okay, next item is the second reading ordinance amending Title 6 of the Tacoma Park Code to add provisions to create a new rental housing tax
So
credit.
moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Small. Thank you, Councilmember Hanzak, seconding. Are there any points of discussion? Councilmember, actually, Councilmember Gibson, your light is first.
Yeah, I actually left it on. This is something that I would like to propose some minor wording to the whereas section of this ordinance, to amend the last whereas within the new rental housing tax credit by adding the following words. Whereas the council wishes to amend Title 6 housing of the Tacoma Park Code to provide incentives to development projects which create new rental housing within the city, then adding the words without permanently displacing current residents. Again, it's in the whereas section, so I think it's a clarification of our values and our statement of what we consider important. As important as creating new housing is also making sure that it doesn't potentially displace anyone.
I do not accept that as a friendly amendment.
Okay.
I guess I had thought it was a friendly amendment.
No, and Councilmember Gibson, I think that changes the tone in reference to the ordinance itself. I do believe that there was another proposal that was put forward, but Councilmember Gibson, if you want there to be a vote on that versus adding a whereas clause that's focused more on the council's commitment and less so on inferring that the purpose of the resolution is to the purpose of the ordinance is to prevent displacement.
There has been some discussion, and given the discussion beforehand and discussion now, I have another alternative, which would read, and I thank the mayor for presenting me with these words. Whereas the 2023-24 City Council priorities includes a goal to, quote, ensure that a range of safe, high-quality, affordable, green and energy-efficient housing options are equitably available in neighborhoods throughout the community, unquote, and the council is committed to creating new housing and preserving existing affordable housing without displacing residents. So I'd like to replace my prior one.
Okay.
I also don't accept that as a friendly. You would have to have a
No,
formal.
that's a formal motion.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Councilmember Gibson has made a formal motion to add the first whereas clause, which states the council's commitment to housing. Do we have a second to the motion? Thank you, Councilmember Fulcher. Any points of discussion regarding the whereas?
Yes. I assume that this is going to probably pass in order to placate people or something like that, but I'd just like to reiterate that most of the housing that is affordable, that is in the city, is in Ward 6 or Ward 5, maybe some in Ward 4. And I am utterly sure that displacement is not an issue in any of those places because of the knowledge of the residents and the dedication of the staff. And I do think that to continue to say these things about displacement, which I don't know, could border on implying things about race or race apathy or any number of things, is sort of disingenuous. And while I'm sure this one will pass, I will be glad when that no longer happens up here.
Thank you, Councilmember Small. I do just want to make one point very clear. In Ward 6, Hampshire Towers was a property that was undergoing improperly so, many years ago, a condo conversion, which was not supposed to happen, which led to the displacement of a number of people. And so while I think that it's great that we have staff now, I do think that it is important for us to, we talked about the unlawful removal of unlawful restricted covenants. I think it's really important for us to remember our past as a community to make sure that we don't repeat it. So while I understand your point, I do think that I don't see that there's anything wrong with restating as part of a whereas clause our commitment to making sure that things that have happened in the past in error do not happen in the future.
I would like it if you put that in there. No, like seriously, that's sweet. The part about error and future.
Yeah. All right.
Like really.
Okay.
Can you make that
All right, we have a motion on the floor for this whereas clause. All right. Any other points of discussion? All right.
May I?
Go right ahead.
I'm sorry. I just want to reiterate though too that I am going to vote in favor of this, although I didn't put it on the table. I want to echo the sentiment that is being expressed by Councilmember Small that it is important to me that as we vote on this amendment that it feels frustrating to me because I don't think it's necessary to put it in. And I think it suggests that we are somehow putting residents at risk by passing this tax credit of displacement, and that bothers me a lot because I don't agree with that sentiment, and I don't agree with the fact that that's being communicated to many vulnerable residents at the moment, and that really pains me. I've even heard folks who are in support of this language say they know that it's not necessary, so this is purely symbolic. So I just want to make that plain and clear. I think every single council member sitting up here does not support displacement of current residents. And if we thought we had that problem, we would have done something even more stringent about it, but we don't, and neither does the staff. So I just want to make that extremely clear before we take this vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hanzak. Councilmember Fulcher.
Want to say that I agree with Councilmember Small and Councilmember Hanzak. on their sentiments, and that I am planning on supporting this motion, and it is because I do think that Councilmember Gibson has worked really hard to find a compromise on, on how he can do this in a way that makes people who know that that displacement is not a huge concern with this. Not that we're not concerned about displacement, that we don't think that that this credit is going to cause displacement. And furthermore, for efficiency's sake and for clean written language, it makes me uncomfortable to put stuff in there that's just extra. However, I really appreciate the work that Councilmember Gibson has done with the mayor in looking for language that makes me more comfortable. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, Councilmember Fulcher. Councilmember DeBala.
I agree with all that has been said so far about this, and I would like to add that this applies equally to preserving existing affordable housing. We have already voted on the preservation tax credit, but we do have the opportunity to put this also as a whereas in the rehab credit, which is coming up.
Yep. Okay. All right. Seeing no more hands, all those in favor of the whereas clause, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Do we have any opposed? Any abstain?
Aye.
Okay. Councilmember Small abstains. Okay. The last resolution directing staff to develop and budget for a multifamily rehabilitation tax credit.
We didn't vote on
Oh, my, thank you so much. We need to call the vote. So sorry. It's a lot. There are 8 things we're voting on here tonight, people. All
You
right.
did a good job so far, all things considered. Even with the jumping around, that's pretty impressive.
All right. So would the clerk please call the roll on the amended ordinance amending Title 6 of the Tacoma Park Code to add provisions to create a new rental housing tax credit?
Councilmember Fulcher,
Yes.
Councilmember DeBala,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibson,
Nay.
Councilmember Siemens,
Aye.
Councilmember Hanzak,
Aye.
Councilmember Small,
Yes, y'all.
Mayor Searcy.
Aye. All right. Last but not least, resolution directing staff to develop and budget for multifamily rehabilitation tax credit. Would someone like to move it?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilmember DeBala. Councilmember Hanzak seconds. Are there any points of discussion? Councilmember Gibson.
Sorry.
All right. Any other points of discussion? Councilmember Small.
Bad actors better beware.
Okay. All right. Councilmember DeBala.
Yes, I had a question about the lack of, so the 2 ordinances have a lot of specifics in them, and this resolution gives a lot more room. And I'd like to hear what your thinking is on that before I propose anything.
Yeah, so the intention is for staff to take this kind of outline, turn it into program guidelines, and bring those back similar to admin regulations, but they aren't, passed as like a regulation. They're just a program guideline for review by council. Probably, sorry, and I was scribbling notes. I'm going to say around June or July of 2025.
So the phrase in here, I don't have it in front of me at the moment, that, in accordance with discussions with council, as far as you concerned, doubles back to the presentation where we have some very specific things about how many years and how many eligibilities and
Yep.
so you don't feel a need to say that in the resolution.
Correct.
Okay. It seemed to me that I had 2 amendments on this, but if there are questions before we get to that.
Councilmember Small, Councilmember DeBala, you have a an amendment?
Yeah, but I need to find it, so why don't you let somebody else talk?
All right, Councilmember Small?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about this and the vision that it took and requires to implement such a thing, and the opportunity to be the wonk who has wonked this into existence. And so I just wanted to make sure that everyone knows that Devin, in addition to being both high touch and reluctantly high touch with the people who need his services, that he is a good drafter and and this is a thing that I wish I could have done in 3 different places in my life. And so for you to have gotten to this point, you should feel proud of yourself, really. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you so much.
Notwithstanding all the knuckleheaded weirdness.
Thank you, Councilmember Small. Councilmember DeBala, do you have your amendments?
I'm looking for them. I'm sorry. Can somebody else pull them up quicker? I sent them around this afternoon. We're gonna find them.
Is it the one in the email?
Yeah. Oh, here we go, I think. So I would like to propose two amendments to the resolved question, to the resolved section. It's all one sentence, but let's take it in 2 parts. So the first part is the budget funding. So rather than lock us into $50,000 a year, I would, absent some reason why we have to say that, because it doesn't say $50,000 this coming year. It says $50,000 a year. I would like it to say, to be determined, funding to be determined each year during the budget process in the range of, and then your range, 50 to 150,000. That's the first one. And then the second one, pardon? Yeah, which is the range of examples that were given. Because if you look at the examples, not that we need to do it now, 50,000 doesn't buy a lot, especially in the bigger buildings. Then the second one, which may not be needed based on what we heard about the other administrative guidelines and based on what we just heard, and return to council for a briefing on the program specifics, because when I first read it, it did make me nervous that there weren't any comparative to the others. There wasn't a lot of specifics in there, but we have heard that you are absolutely coming back with the specifics, so scratch that one. So then I would just like to say, either we say to be determined each budget year and put the range in, or if people feel it should be set at $50,000 for this first year, one or the other. I prefer the range. Comments?
You got me again, Cindy.
Pardon?
I thought I understood what you were talking about, and then at the end, I didn't.
All right, let's start it again.
Well, let me just intervene. So what we have here is really kind of 2 pieces that have been kind of nudged into one abbreviated resolution. The first is establishing funding for what is in essence what the program would be, right? $50,000, or giving the staff the task of developing this program, but you have to give them some guidance in terms of how much money you're talking about, right? In order for them to come back and tell us how, what we would actually get for that amount, right? So it seems like that I just want to confirm with Councilmember DeBala that one concern is that the council is committing, it appears as if the council may be committing to funding this at $50,000 per year, and we're not 100% sure yet that that is the amount indeed that we want to fund. And so instead, you would like to see the proposal based on the range of funding
Yes.
that was originally
Thank you.
proposed, so that we can make a determination in terms of the scope for future budget allocations. So my question to staff is one where in terms of, because again, the purpose of this resolution is to direct staff to develop this program.
Yes.
Is it more helpful for council to give you the lower threshold, which is this $50,000 in terms of program development that you will ultimately come back to the council to present? Or is it useful to have, as Councilmember DeBala has outlined, a range of funding that you could use to flesh out what potentially the program components would consist of?
Yeah, I think in terms of the program development, we're going to be focused on kind of what the eligibility is, how we competitively assess these applications as they come in, and those will be the key details. I think the cap will be how many buildings will be eligible. So setting a lower cap now, and then if the program is successful, the cap can always be adjusted upwards. It's a matter of just saying, hey, we're going to budget for more, bring more buildings into the tax credit program. So starting with that 50,000 number is not, I think, a concern staff has.
Okay, and I do just want to remind my colleagues, because of the threshold changes that were made to the preservation housing credit of going from 30% AMI to 60% AMI, the expectation is that there would be greater impacts on the city's budget as a result of that. So I would actually err more on the side of staff recommendation of having them put forward a proposal at the lower threshold, keeping in mind that we've already expanded costs based on the criteria that was used for the other credit programs.
So I'm aware of that, and I would like to propose the range.
Okay, so, and Councilmember DeBala, would you specify the language that you would like to propose?
I just shut up. Okay. Yes, so to say budget funding in the range of $50,000 to $150,000 a year annually toward the program.
Okay. All right.
To be determined each year during the budget process.
Okay. Annually, towards the
Is it
program.
possible to make an amendment to an amendment?
Determined.
Can I make a friendly amendment to that?
Councilmember Hanzak, go right ahead.
If you would like to present that, I would suggest that rather than putting a cap at the top of that range, that you just say 50 and upwards. Since it sounds like the staff is suggesting that they're basically going to be spending a lot of their times, not so much on the actual dollar amount, but on the regulations themselves and the programmatic aspects. And then that would just give them give any of us the freedom to determine the amount.
Yeah, I was going on the fact that they picked 50 to 150 for examples for a reason. And so I didn't want to go above that because there wasn't any specific translation of that into what we would get, what we would see for that. And the budget implications were spelled out from 50 to 150K, and that's why I didn't put an unlimited upper end.
Okay. All right. So you want to keep the range?
I would like to keep the range.
Okay. And do we have a second already? Okay. Councilmember Gibson seconds. All those in favor of Councilmember DeBala's amendment to the whereas clause, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Can I get those ayes clear?
Can we get them hands?
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Aye.
Okay. Councilmember Gibson, Fulcher, DeBala, and Hanzak. All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay. So that is Councilmember Small, Councilmember Siemens, and myself. So the motion passes. So all those in favor of the resolution directing staff to develop a budget for a multifamily rehab tax credit, please say aye.
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 I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think you want to.
Point of ordering, I just trying to figure out where we are now in the
Yep.
process.
So Councilmember DeBala has made an amendment to the whereas clause. That amendment has passed. So therefore the resolution has been amended, and now we are voting on the resolution.
Okay.
Okay? All right. All those in favor of the amended resolution directing staff to develop and budget for a multifamily rehabilitation tax credit, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All those abstain? Okay. All right. So that is our last voting item for this evening. And I think that means we are done for tonight. Awesome.
Can we do a flash mob of End of the Road by Boyce Ben?
Oh,
And you can sing the lead.
no.
Oh, all right.
Everybody have a great night.